Has the Department of Justice prosecuted a single case against individuals demonstrating at the residence of Supreme Court justices in violation of USC 1507?
I'm not aware that there's been a case brought under that particular statute.
So the answer is no. Does the purposeful movement of human beings and dangerous narcotics to the tune of 107,000 dead Americans across our border by armed and organized cartels pose a danger to the national security of the United States?
So I'm not familiar with the facts that you're referring to.
You're not familiar with cartels and their involvement with 107,000 dead Americans related to fentanyl. You don't believe that you can't comment on whether that poses a danger to the national security of the United States?
I'm not familiar with the facts that you're referring to. I will say that there's no doubt that the movement of illegal drugs across our borders poses a threat to the safety and well-being of Americans.
What about threats to Border Patrol agents, such as signs displayed on the Rio Grande threatening to kill Border Patrol, or gunfire on the streets of Texas? Would that pose a national security threat to the United States?
You know, I don't know specifically what you're referring to, but obviously acts of violence directed at our law enforcement, federal or state, is a significant concern and one that we take very seriously.
A question before from one of my colleagues about known gotaways. He said 500,000. How about simply the 389,000 known gotaways that the Attorney General actually testified under oath here in the House of Representatives, accepting that fact that the Attorney General testified, I'm sorry, that might have been the Secretary of Homeland Security testified under oath. Knowing that, known gotaways, would that pose a danger to the national security of the United States?
I'm just not familiar with the facts that you're referring to.
The Secretary of Homeland Security testified in this body. Assuming that fact, would you accept that as posing a danger to the national security of the United States?
I'm comfortable talking about cases that we are bringing or that we have brought that are a matter of public record where we've proven cases in court. I would prefer not to comment on hypotheticals.
Which poses a greater danger to the American national security, cartels or parents at school board meetings?
I mean, look, in groups, violent gangs that move drugs or are involved in acts of violence are a significant threat.
They pose a greater danger to the United States than do parents at school board meetings?
I would certainly have to agree with that. I would agree that as a general proposition, being a parent myself,
I thank you for that.
Gangs and violent groups pose a greater threat to the American people.
I thank you for that.
That's a serious question.
Is the Department of Justice still operating under the memorandum issued by the Attorney General Merrick Garland on October 4th, 2021, in which he said, quote, disturbing spike in harassment, intimidation, and threats of violence to school boards? Are they still operating under that memorandum?
The Attorney General's guidance from last fall is
continues
still in effect. Yes, sir.
And the press release that was issued, Justice Department addresses violent threats against school officials and teachers. Your division is mentioned. Why?
So the National Security Division is part of a broader array of components of the Justice Department that have part of that effort to ensure that people who serve on local school boards or other bodies are safe.
You think parents at school boards rise to the level of the National Security Division at the Department of Justice?
I certainly think it's possible that there could be a threat or an act of violence against somebody in the local office, whether it's city council or school board, that might reflect a domestic violent extremist attack.
So you're saying yes. Is it appropriate to use the Patriot Act against parents?
So the Patriot Act is a variety of tools. I can't talk about it in the abstract.
Did the National School Boards Association recommend the use of the Patriot Act and describe that the actions of parents at school boards are the equivalent to domestic terrorism preceding the memo issued by the Department of Justice?
I don't know.
You don't know?
I don't know.
You don't know that there was a memorandum put out by the National School Board Association referring to domestic terrorism and the use of the Patriot Act prior to the Attorney General of the United States issuing a memorandum directly targeting and focusing on school boards? You don't know?
I've heard you and other members of this committee make reference to that today.
You're the head of the National Security Division, in which it's mentioned in the press release that goes out, and you don't know. You don't know. You're testifying under oath here before us that you don't know anything about that.
No, I've heard of that letter. I don't know exactly what it says.
Do you support the tagging of alleged threats involving schools or school boards as edu officials, as was made public via whistleblower?
So I think how the FBI characterizes its cases is a question that's better posed to the FBI.